Hello and welcome to the Everyday Adventure podcast. My name is Nikki Bass and I'm a business psychologist, army veteran and everyday adventurer. I will be sharing my conversations with some truly incredible guests who are weaving adventure into their daily lives. And I really hope these conversations inspire you to undertake your own everyday adventures too. So today I am really thrilled to welcome Heather Sharp and Stephanie Quintrell of Forces Wives Challenge to the podcast. So those who have followed the podcast for a while will know that we featured Heather way back in episode 9, which was a really long time ago. I think it was probably like end of 2020 or something. And Heather and I have become good friends and we work closely together since then. And just watching the growth and development of Forces Wives Challenge over the last few years has just been, it's been so inspiring. And I also know, although I've not met Steph before, I know what an integral part of that journey she's been too. So I'm really delighted to have them both here. This is the second time, only the second time I've had more than one guest, so it could all go horribly wrong, but we'll go with that anyway. So Forces Wives Challenge is a social enterprise which Heather founded on the back of 10 years of regular army experience. And she was aware of the opportunities that she had had for adventure through the forces. And she really wanted to be able to offer that to the amazing women in the Forces Wives community that she met. They've just delivered their 50th event, which is incredible, the Yorkshire Three Peaks. And they deliver a whole range of events, which range from breathwork to paddle sports to horse riding, which brings me nicely to what we're going to be talking about today. Because back in June 2023, Heather, Steph, and 6 other amazing women completed the Ride to Freedom on horseback across the Pyrenees. And this was using the routes that had been used by downed RAF aircrew and Jewish refugees to escape occupied France back in the Second World War. So it was a pretty incredible adventure that they were on. And this was a pretty unique expedition for Forces Wives Challenge as well, because it was co-created with Steph, who's their ops manager. And Steph has gone on to become the first wheelchair-dependent person to complete this journey, which is an amazing feat in itself. So if you're a regular listener, you'll know that accessibility and being able to access adventure in all sorts of different circumstances, regardless of background, regardless of your own journey to it, is a hugely important part of the podcast. And I know that there was so much thought and planning and discussion that went into this adventure. And I think it's really important to acknowledge this as well. So we'll be talking about the experience that they had on this incredible journey, but also just thinking about some of those challenges and opportunities that are presented when we think about accessibility and how to enable greater inclusivity in adventure. And for those of us who feel it's really important to do this and are trying to create experiences that are truly inclusive, I think it's really important that we learn from Heather and from Steph's story as well. So welcome to the show. A bit of a long intro there, but I think it's really important that we get some of the context as well. I'd love to start, Steph, with you, just telling me a little bit about, I guess, your own story, how you got to the place where you were on this ride to freedom, that you're in the Pyrenees on horseback, and seeing some of the videos footage from it. I mean, such a wide variety of terrain and weather and experiences that you had. So yeah, a little bit about your background would be amazing.
So firstly, thanks for having us on today. I'm really excited to be chatting with you. A kind of very brief of my background. I was able-bodied until 2019, working mum of a 2-year-old, very, very active, riding my horse. And then in July of 2019, I became suddenly really unwell, and then was subsequently diagnosed with a neurological condition. So kind of our world, mine and my family's world, was changed almost overnight. Within about 48 hours, I went from being what had been my normal to what my new normal was. So I am dependent on a wheelchair full time. I can't weight bear. I've lost use in one of my hands, my fingers in one of my hands, and then I have a whole host of other quite complex symptoms to deal with whilst managing this quite complex neurological disorder that I have. So with that big change in life, that obviously initially sounds quite negative. It gave me an opportunity to make something else of my life, because my life was very different. I'd had to give up my career, lost my independence. So I looked at it almost reshaping myself. And 2 years later, in 2021, was when I came across Forces Wives Challenge. So at the time, I was living in a married quarter with my husband and our son, and kind of just getting my head around maybe trying to find something to do. Now I was a little bit managing my health a little bit better, and had learned to live with the disability that I've got. And yeah, came across FWC on a social media post. Didn't know Heather, I didn't know any members. And I remember doing a bit of research on the internet about them, and reading and just going, wow, this organisation, it just feels like this is something that I should be part of. I have no idea in what capacity that would be, because at the time, I mean, I wasn't even an active wheelchair user. But I found Heather's email address and sent her an email and said that I would love to be involved in some way, but I'm not going to be able to physically be involved on the challenges. Is this something I could support you with? And at that point, FWC was starting to really rapidly grow, and it seemed like it was a good time for Heather when she got that email. And then, my involvement with FWC is just sort of developed from there, and then took us to last year when we were riding across the Pyrenees, really. Sorry, that was a lot of words, wasn't it? I was trying
No,
to make
it was
amazing.
amazing.
I'm trying to shorten my story a bit.
And I can appreciate that, trying to cram your story, which is huge and complex, and like you said, into a short space of time. But I think what you've given us really, really successfully, is just a sense of how quickly things, I guess, change for you. But also, while you were talking, I was just thinking about, one of the things I often, talk about is this idea that actually adventure is it's a perception. It's about, how we approach life, as much as it tends to be thought of as an activity. It's about something we go and do. But actually, what that adventure looks like for everybody is going to be different, and it will really depend on our perspective. And I was just thinking, even in spite of what's happened to you, is that adventurous outlook. Okay, I'm going to go off, and even just going, right, FWC, Forces Wife Challenge, that sounds amazing. I'm going to go and find Heather's email, and I'm going to get in touch with her. There'll be a lot of people out there who will often have these, see something out there. They think, oh, wow, that sounds really exciting. I want to be part of it. But get stopped at that hurdle of, well, I don't know what to do about that, or it doesn't feel like it's right for me, or I don't know what I'd do, or I don't even know how to get in touch with them. And that becomes the barrier, which point we never cross. It becomes an idea in our head. And what I love is just the fact they went, you know what, I want to be part of this. I don't know how. And all those questions and doubts were still there, but you're like, I'm just going to find the address. I'm just going to get in touch with Heather and go for it.
I definitely took a bit of a leap of faith there. I think you're right there with the adventure is what we we often talk about, a challenge, an adventure being, it's personal to that person, and what an adventure is for one person, won't be the same for the next. And putting yourself out there, out of your comfort zone, that's what the adventure is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, amazing. It just sort of encapsulates everything that FWC is about as well. Heather, I'm just going to come to you. So Steph comes to you, and she takes on work as ops manager, and I know you had a conversation about, because obviously the initial adventures you did were very much around, I know, hill walking and mountains are your passion as well, and a lot of the events were around that. So I'd love you just to tell me a little bit about how you got to Ride to Freedom, which is a very different type of adventure that you've done before. And Steph, feel free to chip in as well as we hear more about it. So where did the idea start, and how did it come together? And I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so like you said, traditionally it's been more walking and kind of mountains based, and we still do a lot of that, which is fantastic. But over the years, we started to branch out. So we started to do like swimming, and now we do sailing and rock climbing and all sorts. And Steph, is there at pretty much all of our challenges, and she's always with her amazing husband John, who is fabulous. and she's always there supporting it as the ops manager, and she gets involved wherever she can. But she just one day, well, it was actually John, wasn't it, Steph, who said, well, I went down to visit Steph down at her yard where she's got her pony Bubbo, and we were chatting away, and John just afterwards said, well, Steph, why you can ride, what about a challenge that you can do? And sort of like this is so John, honestly, he sets these seeds that he sows these seeds, and then and anyway, Steph said, what do you think? And I said, oh goodness, I don't know, let's have a look, let's see what it looks like. So Steph went, okay. So she went off and kind of, it was all her work, went off and kind of researched it, found the provider, and then between us we just kind of designed, worked out how the risk would look like, how, what does this process look like. And it was very much just the two of us feeling our way as an organisation, because I'm going to be completely honest with you, before I met Steph, I didn't know anybody in a wheelchair. And so when that initial email came in and Steph said, how can I help? I was like, oh, goodness, we climb mountains, I don't know. And then I said, well, do you want to come along to Pen y Fan? And admin is not my strong point, and Steph is unbelievably good at admin. And I just said, do you want to come and help? At the bottom, I said, if I'm honest, I've no idea about how accessible it is. I don't know if a wheelchair can get there. I don't know. And she was like, we'll figure it out, we'll give it a go. And so she turned up, it was a bit rocky, a bit difficult, wasn't it? But her and John kind of just were like in their stride, just did it, and just were all over the admin. I've never been that organised in my life, and I thought, I don't know how I'll cope without Steph. So yeah, a bit of a rambling answer, but I think in summary it's just been completely two-way, just the two of us figuring out a way to make it happen.
I think, just to chip in there, like you said, I think it's been a kind of working out logistics and working out as we went along, because the idea was there. And I mean, actually, if I look back to that sort of after that initial conversation we had when we went, okay, I'm going to go and do some research and look at this, actually what that sort of challenge in my head looked like to what it turned out as, I think in the beginning I was thinking quite it was the kind of the logistics of getting me on off my horse. So I started riding again after a break when I first got ill, and my husband lifted me on off my horse. Well, okay, so either my husband has to come on the challenge, or we have to figure out another way to get me on off the horse. And so initially it was that kind of, I wasn't really sure what this expedition would look like. And then it sort of developed when we found the provider, and then and a lot of it was just us back and forth, sort of bouncing ideas and just figuring out as we went, really.
So interesting. Well, I was just thinking when you started, what I love is the fact you went straight to like riding over the Pyrenees. It's like it's not even going, right, well, let's try this at a smaller scale. It's like, no, right, we're gonna do the Pyrenees and then we'll work it out. I think what came through so clearly for me is just listening to you is the level of honesty. Like you said, Heather, I don't know, but there's a sort of combination of honesty and openness that seems to characterize, I guess the conversations and the relationship that you have, but that I think one of the biggest barriers that people often encounter when it comes to making these experiences, or thinking about thinking about experiences and outdoor experiences in a more accessible, inclusive way, is I don't know where to start, or I don't know how to do this, or I'm going to put my foot in it, I'm going to get this wrong. And actually to be able to come to that and going, I'm going to get this wrong because I don't know. I'm sorry, I've never been in this situation. And I think from your point of view, Steph, to be able to meet that and go, right, well, you know what, I've not done this, I've not done this type of expedition or adventure before, and I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm open to ideas. There seems to be, something just in that quality of openness and conversation that I think can be quite rare, actually, and often stops something from getting started in the first place.
I totally agree with that, Nikki. And Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, like, something me and Steph often talk about, and I feel so lucky that that she is so open, because there'll be certain situations and I'll be like, Steph, I'm sorry, have I said the wrong thing? Or if we're going to a location and it won't be totally wheelchair accessible, I'll be sort of saying stuff that this is the issue, there's this many steps, or there's this, and Steph's like, no, I want to come, we'll make it work, we'll find a way, and we do it, and then we maybe educate the people who have the location that actually this needs changing, this is the issue. So Steph is so brilliant at kind of, she's like, no, I want to be part of it, I don't want to miss out, and I don't want everything to change because of me. But so she comes along, and as a result of her coming along, things change. So, and I think for everybody in our organization who has contact with Steph, it's their kind of confidence around disability grows, because they're not scared of having the conversations, or even now, getting the train. If I will always ask somebody in a wheelchair, can I help? Because sometimes people are scared that it's the wrong thing to say. The person can always say, no, I'm fine, don't worry about it. But having met Steph, I now know that actually just the offer of help really is appreciated.
And I think to add to that, that level of, like you say, that level of openness and honesty, and those conversations are scary for people to have on both sides. I think on being the disabled person side, kind of saying, well, can we find a way to do this? In the fear that someone's going to say no, or like they won't entertain the idea, or the other way around. And excuse me. And I think that we talk quite a lot about how we've developed that kind of working relationship, and that honesty and that kind of just awareness. But I think also, for me as a person, personal kind of growth, it's something I've really struggled with, was asking for help. So prior to becoming unwell, I was fiercely independent, and didn't rely on anyone. And that was how I saw myself, as this really strong, independent woman. And then obviously when everything changed, and all of a sudden I was quite literally dependent on other people for my day-to-day needs, because in those early days I couldn't actually take care of myself. I really struggled to ask for help. So when it came to then coming on board with FWC, and then kind of even more so with the preparation for Ride to Freedom, it dawned on me, I didn't want to ask for help from the other ladies on the team. I wanted to ask for the absolute minimum, because I somehow saw that as some sort of failure. So I would kind of do as much as I could physically do, ask as little of anyone else as possible. And I think probably that it really dawned on me when we were actually out in France, that I suddenly realised that by asking for help from the team, or by accepting their offers of help, because they were offering, they wanted to help, I suddenly realised that that's what was going to make me successful. Not refusing help and then trudging along and trying to do it, in whatever way I could. And it was almost, it felt like a bit of a light bulb moment. And I talk about this probably to anyone that will listen, about that kind of, it is totally okay to ask for help and to accept help, and whatever help that looks like. So for me, it's physically, I physically need help because of my disability. But for someone else, that help could be, maybe they're really anxious about going and trying something. So the help that they need help just in a way. Or someone that's new to it and doesn't know, wants to go on a venture and has no idea where to start. Well, they need help. But actually, all of these people will only be successful if they ask for and accept support. And I think that's something I'm really passionate about getting out there, is that that's not just me as a disabled person, that's everyone. We all have things we need help with.
That's so interesting, isn't it? I was just sort of reflecting as you were saying that, because one of the biggest challenges I think I often have when I'm working, not only personally, because I think a lot of what you said really resonated with me as well, but I think also with the teams that I work with, and I think just in general in modern life and in our culture, it's around, actually, I feel like I should be able to do this all alone. And if I don't, if I can't, then that's something that's a reflection on my inability to cope and to manage. And And I was just thinking how, I guess for you being placed in that position where just because you're in a position where actually you are more reliant on help, it doesn't necessarily make it any easier to
Exactly.
to be able to open up and go, actually this, and I guess just thinking about actually as well of what those other people within your team needed and needed help with, and that you were probably providing all sorts of help to them in different ways too.
Yeah.
But that we stop seeing it as a sense of actually we're a collective and we're a team and we're able to bring to bear all of our skills, but also our needs. And actually being vulnerable with our needs is a really important part of it, because that's what connects us with each other and enables us, like you said, to go on and achieve what your team and what you achieved was so incredible. But that actually that relied on becoming a lot more open with what you needed too. So I just think it's really useful to, like you said, there's a much broader lesson in there than around, the individual story as well within that. So I know there were quite a few challenges that occurred actually on the adventure as well, on the route. But I guess I'm just wondering, sort of thinking, broadly about the whole expedition that you undertook, right from the very start of it to sort of completing. I mean, what to you was sort of the biggest challenges, that not just that you faced, but what's the thing that you're really proud of having navigated, even if it wasn't overcome, the thing that you're proud of having grappled with? I'm going to come to you first, Steph, if that's okay.
That's a tricky question, because there was lots of challenges, and there's lots that I'm really proud of. I think for us as a team, actually, for me, I'm really, really proud that as a team we were able to achieve what we were able to achieve together. That kind of sense of teamwork. We often say we work in teams, whatever, but what does it really take to make a successful team? And when you're on an adventure, I mean any adventure, but an adventure to the scale that we were, where there is very real challenges that can be dangerous, that can be, these are real challenges. You have to have a strong team, or you're just not going to be able to do it. And I think, we worked really hard as a team in the build up to Ride to Freedom. We did make real conscious efforts to do virtual team building activities. We had someone that supported us with that. And I think for me, when we were out, it was the third day when we were out riding on the expedition, and it was a really, really difficult day. The weather was horrendous, and as we climbed higher into the mountain that day, where we were camping at the top of the mountain, the weather just got worse, and we knew that there was a thunder and lightning storm coming in. We knew that we needed to get to the top of the mountain before that, so it was a very much kind of, we need to just plow on and keep going. And one of the issues for me is when I get cold and wet, my body can't regulate its own temperature, and I can't warm back up again because I can't move around. So we were kind of super aware of, okay, well, we need to be able to get me dry into the tent as quick as we can, but first we've got to get to that top of the mountain first. And it was a really tough day. And I just remember every point that real teamwork needed to come together, it just did. It just worked. There didn't need to be words. We didn't need to ask each other. It wasn't like, oh, could you hold my horse while I help Steph off? Can you do that? It literally was just everyone just rallied together without any words, and we just got it done. So we got to the top, we got the shelter up. It was a case of get me off and get me in the dry and get all of this wet kit off, that by that point I was so cold I couldn't move. So Heather kind of chucked her horse and my horse at someone else came and grabbed me. Heather was getting the wheelchair off, someone else then came and lifted me off, and someone else was untacking it, and it just happened. It was like this really well-oiled machine, kind of it just happened. And I think it was, we did it. We overcame that day. We were fine. I didn't leave that tent again until the next morning because the weather was so bad. So I had to they brought food in and I sat in my little tent instead of going back out again. But it just worked. It just worked. Everyone's needs were met, not just mine, but everyone's, and everyone pulled together. And I think that I'm really proud of, because actually we didn't spend that much physical time together as a team before I'd freedom, not much at all. So the fact that we could work in that way, I think it was testament to every single person there.
They're so powerful, isn't it? That thing, like, how do you know when a team is functioning or high performing? Well, like you said, because when you're in that situation, actually, like you said, there's, the words sort of disappear and everyone just knows their role and what they're there to do. And obviously it's testament to the work that you both put in, I guess, both selecting the team and doing all the preparation beforehand, and how that all came in together, and that mindset as well about what you're there to do. I mean, Heather, what for you? Would you agree? Are there any other moments that stick out for you? You just think, yeah, we did that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Steph. That day was pretty epic. And if you see the video, there's some...
I've seen a lot of. I'm now looking back to the video, going, was that rain coming off? That looks immense.
A lot of rain.
Oh
and I think, I sort of see it from a different perspective as, the CEO of FWC. And on this expedition, we had a girl, Ronnie, who's just amazing. So she was expert leader. And then my job was really sort of to support Steph in any way she needs, which was amazing. So Ronnie would sort of sit back and look at the team as a whole and what everybody needed. And I was, supporting Steph, and it worked really well, actually. Like Steph said, when the weather was coming in, I'd hop off, get the wheelchair, get Steph out. I remember pushing her into the tent, and the heavens just opened, completely open. But the other girls got the horses sorted, and then it really was seamless. So I haven't really got anything to add. The ladies were absolutely incredible, and actually Steph, she sort of united us, because if everybody was struggling, it's sort of Steph was the focal point, and we had an aim. We had a really clear aim. So it just meant that people would maybe think there was no sort of niggles in the group, really. Because we just kind of, it really wasn't, was there? Because we just sort of, it felt really quite irrelevant. You were seeing what Steph was going through, and so whinging that your feet were wet or something. I don't know, it really did unite us. So, and I learned a heck of a lot. I really did. So yeah.
So what would you say was because one of the questions I often ask people, what was the unexpected benefits that come as a result of what of what you learnt or what you went through on the expedition? I suppose just leading on from that, what's the thing that you've taken away, I suppose, and that you've gone, actually, maybe it's not the thing that I expected to get out of this, but this is the thing that sort of stuck with me since.
For me, it's definitely an awareness. An awareness about not just disability, but difference, and not being scared of it. Steph's difference is very visible. So sometimes people can sort of shy away from it and be unsure how to deal with it. And actually, we're all different, and everybody needs something different, some support, that sort of tailored support. They talk about equity versus equality, and we really try as an organisation to see all of our ladies as individuals and to cater for what they need to get the best out of them. So I think, with Steph, that's what I've really learned, is this kind of awareness, that tailoring the support. And even on all of our challenges, Steph will see things from a bit of a different angle to me. So we will, between us, what's the best way to deal with that, to try and make us as inclusive as possible. So instead of going on too scared to go, actually it's how can we make it possible. So I think that's one of my big sort of unexpected benefits that I've learned.
It's interesting what you said about, that Steph, that you see things from a different perspective as well, or you'll bring in, because I know that's something that's often, and we know it to be true. The evidence is there around inclusion, around diversity, around having different thoughts and approaches and ideas that enrich the experience and that enrich your decision making as well, that actually, you know, in the absence of having a lot of different perspectives, actually we can make some really bonkers decisions often. Not saying that you do necessarily, Heather, but
Probably do.
but yeah, I'm there. But I think that, you know, it's such a powerful sort of illustration of that actually, you know, by being open to not just seeing it as a barrier or something to overcome, but actually going, no, we get so much more from opening up and from including all different perspective, and all, you know, that's going to bring something even bigger and better to what we're already delivering. And yes, Steph, I'd love to know what your unexpected benefit, obviously, you know, being able to take part in one of the FWC challenges, I can imagine was huge, and to go from, you know, enabling to be sort of participating and joining in. But I just wondered what else, you know, as a result of it, you went, oh my gosh, I never expected that, and that's just been incredible.
I think, excuse me, for me, exactly. I mean, when I say it was a life-changing experience, I genuinely mean that. And actually, all the girls have said that. For them, for lots of different reasons, it was life-changing for all of us. For me, I think I didn't realise what an impact taking part in that would have me afterwards. So, you know, kind of on an independence level, I spoke shortly a little while ago about the loss of independence when I first became unwell, and back when I first became unwell, I felt totally dependent on other people, and initially I was. But what Ride to Freedom showed me with independence was actually independence is different for all of us. But I suddenly regained some of that independence, and actually, kind of it showed me the other opportunities I could have by, you know, that kind of increased confidence I had. And, you know, even just things like I've been out and I've done presentations, public speaking things. I never would have dreamed of doing that before. And all of a sudden I've got these opportunities that I'm making a real impact on other people by sharing what I've done. I don't think I realised how profound that would be. I think I kind of, I suppose naively went in thinking, you know, this expedition is about us, FWC, me. I just didn't realise what a positive impact it would have on other people as well. And, you know, we're nearly a year down the line now, and people, when they talk to me about it, you know, when, let's say at the weekend when we were at York's Three Peaks, and people are talking to me about Ride to Independence, and it's inspiring them. It's still having that impact on them nearly a year down the line, and that's been really surprising. Yeah.
It's that sort of ripple effect as well, I think. I mean, I think that's you know, such a common experience in terms of, obviously what you did was not a common experience, can I just make that point? But I think that what we tend to focus on, if we have a big adventure or you know, expedition planned, is that the sort of how I'll feel at the end of it, or what it'll mean in terms of finishing that and having taken part in what we're doing in that sort of moment, and along the expedition. And I think it's really rare sometimes, because we don't know, I guess it's hard to anticipate. But like you said, also partly because of how we are in ourselves probably change through the course of taking on that experience too, that therefore we can't possibly know what will come out of the other end in a way. And I love this idea of those sort of ripple effects that, like you said, that even a year on, that and I'm sure will continue for many years, actually, that there are so many multiple touch points in terms of what you've done, in terms of, you know, as we talked about, some of the points around sort of teamwork, and in terms of what you've achieved in terms of FWC, but then also in terms of role modeling and people being able to go, actually, it's possible. It's, you know, I've seen Steph do it. That might mean it's possible for me to try something, and that may be for people who have a disability, but I would very much imagine that it's for a lot of people who don't, and who are going, wow, that's pretty incredible, you know. And I'm feeling, and like a little bit, as you were saying, Heather, you know, if we're sort of moaning about getting soggy feet or whatever, it's going to make me think twice next time I'm out in the rain on a dog walk, feeling a bit sorry for myself. I'll be like, be more Steph, come on, get a grip. But it's that thing of actually we don't know what impact our actions have on others, and actually what those ripple effects are. So with this in mind, and obviously because riding across the Pyrenees is clearly not enough. I mean, what's next, both in terms of FWC and I guess in terms of for you, Steph, as well? Is there another adventure you'd like to try, or is it in terms of basic, maybe coming back into your sort of day-to-day life and things that you would like to do there? What are the next steps? What are the next goals? I'll come to you first, Steph.
Yeah, so for FWC, I mean, one of the things that we really want, as we talked about, is making our adventures as inclusive as possible. And actually, we're seeing that already. We're seeing ladies sign up to events that would not have signed up if they hadn't have seen me taking part in Ride to Freedom. And they've said that, they would never have dreamed that they could go on that swim that we do, or they could go on that hill walk. They never would have dreamed that actually that was possible. And then all of a sudden they're seeing me do this sort of big challenge, and they're going, okay, well, that means that FWC will support me to do something. So we are already seeing that, and I think that's what's been really important to us. This year for FWC, it's about reaching as many ladies as we can on a kind of lower level. So actually, we haven't done a big expedition this year, but what we're trying to do is reach as many ladies, and actually we are achieving that, and I'm really proud of that. That's what we're we are enabling women who maybe wouldn't have had the confidence to try something, so actually for us as an organization, that's I'm really proud that we are pushing forward with that. For me personally, I will be swimming again in the Devon Sea and hopefully better weather on our Burr Island swim this year. Last year was absolutely horrendous. I spent months training to swim around Burr Island with our ladies, and then it was the most awful storm on the day, and we didn't get out the little harbour bit. So I'll be hoping for better weather this year, and I'll be doing that. And there's lots of other things that I'll dip in and out of, and yeah, exciting things on the horizon.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to hope for some better. I think you deserve some better weather after your last year. So I'll keep my fingers crossed for you. Yeah. And Heather, I just, obviously having, how many years has it been since you founded Forces Wise Challenge? When did you start? When did the idea come up?
So we've officially been a CIC, a community interest company, for 5 years. We've just had our 5th anniversary. So the idea was before then. We did a few challenges, but really, we're just so excited with how things are going. We've got a community of 1,500 women now, kind of all over the globe. And like Steph says, the focus at the minute is very much around reach, trying to break down the barriers, get more people involved. And that could be, more local one-day events. So if people aren't confident to go and stay in a bunkhouse for a weekend, or, they can't get the time, they can't get childcare for that long, that kind of thing. So we've got an adventure academy that we're starting to train our community to become lowland leaders, mountain leaders, risk management, mental health first aiders. So we're really trying to become more self-sufficient so that we can upskill our ladies with the leadership qualities that you also need to deliver a successful FWC event, but not just to deliver a successful FWC event, but those leadership skills they're using in all parts of their life, from their work, other organisations that they do work with. So really, really exciting time.
Oh, it sounds so exciting, honestly. I mean, wishing you all the very best with it as it goes forward as well. It sounds like so many brilliant plans in place as well. So I'm going to finish by asking a question I ask all my guests. Heather, you've already answered this once, although your answer may well have changed, so I might come back to you. Not that you can remember necessarily what you said before. But Steph, I would love to know if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, do you know what? I've been inspired and I'd really like to get started on my own adventure, whatever that may look like, whether that is something, walking down the street, or whether it is, taking on horse riding, or whatever the adventure is. And they've been listening to you. what's the one piece of advice that you would give them?
I think, that's really tricky, isn't it? That's a tricky question.
I never get one piece, by the way, if it helps.
I was going to say, I feel like I'm trying to think of put it down into one thing.
Yeah.
I think that you need to be successful in whatever it is you want to do. Like you say, whether that's walking down the street, starting to horse ride, going over the Pyrenees, you need drive, you need passion, determination. I'm very, very strong-willed, and that sort of blind determination have done well for me since being disabled and taking on these adventures. So you do need that. You need a drive, you need a want to do it, but you also need a support network. Now, that's not, as we said, necessarily relating to disability. The first thing Heather ever wanted to go and do, let's say the first time she wanted to climb a mountain, she couldn't have just literally walked out of her house. You have to do research, you have to look for a support network, whatever that looks like, lean on other people, and I guess that whole thing that anything is possible if you want it enough.
Love that. I love that bit about support network as well. And like you said, that's regardless of your level of ability or where you're starting from. That actually having people who can help enable it and help realize your dream, but also cheer you on, I think it's such a huge part. And I know that's such an important ethos in terms of what Forces Wives Challenge do as well. Heather, is there anything that you would add? Any tips or advice or one piece of thought that one piece, I don't think that's a sentence. Anything that I suppose from the experience of having seen, like I said, and having delivered now 50 sort of adventures and expeditions for people, what's the thing that you would come back to and go, you know what, you do that one thing that will make it such a huge difference?
Yeah, I think you talk about it a lot, Nikki. By its very definition, adventure is uncomfortable, because you're doing something new, you're doing something out of the norm. And your body's going to fight it. So you're going to make the excuses, you're going to procrastinate, you're going to tell stories to yourself, aren't you? But actually, so if you're going to do this, if you're going to go on an adventure as such, it's got to be a deliberate act. You've got to actively go and do it. And you are the only person that can make it happen. And Steph, she talked about it just then on determination. No one else is going to do it for you. They can support you, but if you really want it, you've got to make it happen.
I love it. What a great note to end on. Thank you both so much. It's been absolutely incredible. If people want to find out more about you both, Forces Wives Challenge, where can they go? Steph.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, our website, forceswiveschallenge.org, and follow what we're up to, and see if there's, if you're a Forces wife, veteran or serving partner, then please do come and join us on an adventure.
Amazing. Thank you both so much. Again, it's been wonderful. I'll pop all of those links in the show notes so that people can come and find you and find out. Hopefully you'll get a few more people coming along on your adventures or being inspired by what you do as well. And wishing you all the very best for all the next 50 adventures and expeditions that I have no doubt will unfold over the next few years. Thanks again. Lovely to speak to you. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, Nikki. Bye.
So a huge thank you again to Steph and Heather from Forces Wives Challenge. This week, I wanted to reflect again on the theme of accessibility, which is something that is consistent to this podcast. If you've listened to it for a while, you will be aware it's something that we touch on in most of the conversations. And the reason I wanted to touch on it here was obviously, given Steph's story and the adventure they went on, this is a really critical theme to discuss when we're talking about how we open up adventures to those with disabilities, to those who struggle to access them for whatever reason. But I think it's also important just to position ourselves before we even start having that conversation. And what I mean by this is, often when we talk about accessibility, and I am so equally guilty of this, I'm approaching it from the perspective of what can I do to make adventure or the experiences I offer more accessible? What can I do to ensure that they are inclusive? And that is an important question to ask, but it's not the only question, because actually in doing so, what I am doing is centering myself as the person who gets to decide what is accessible, what is inclusive, what is needed at this point. And I think what was illustrated so beautifully in Heather and Steph's conversation and experience with how actually it was Steph who had the choice. It was Steph who put herself forward, who acted independently in seeking out these adventures, and Heather who learnt from her in terms of, okay, what support do you need to enable this? And in the end, Heather's role was as much to listen as it was to create or support this environment and provide the resources that she could through the Forces Wives Challenge. And I wonder if sometimes we're so busy trying to support or offer solutions or advice or come to these conclusions ourselves that we forget to listen and to understand that maybe we don't know the answers. Maybe that in a position, that if we are in a position where access to adventure is more easy, that maybe we don't necessarily understand what those barriers are. And it's also possible that we are making assumptions about what can or can't be done, or what is or isn't possible for a person or for a group of people. And so I suppose this is really just an invitation for those of you listening that actually, if you are in a position to support and increase access to adventures, or if you are in a position, even if it is with as a parent, or it is as somebody who cares for another person, and wondering, what is it, what do they need, what don't they need, what can I do, what should I be doing, which can be a deeply stressful position, particularly if that person isn't able to articulate what they need. Maybe being able to sit with I don't know, and more may be possible than I think it is. What conversations am I missing? What questions am I not asking? And is there a way that I can become better informed? So I think that is a pledge I'm also making to you, that, as part of this podcast, the aim is very much to listen and hopefully to share some insights from some incredible guests and from my own experience and knowledge as a psychologist, as an army veteran. And also to share some of my own insights and knowledge from my own background. This is a summary that's probably got more questions than it has answers, but I just felt it was important to put it out there. And I've struggled with doing this summary more than many of the others, because I guess I've really been prompted to think by a number of events over the last few months about how am I positioning myself in terms of this summary? How am I positioning myself in terms of a podcast host, and therefore the source of some form of authority, and having the privilege to direct some of the conversations I get to hear? And yeah, it's an interesting one, and one I will continue to explore and consider. I would love to know your thoughts, so please do reach out and get in touch. You can find me on Instagram at Everyday Adventure Pod or Resilience at Work. You can find me on LinkedIn, Nikki Bass. You can reach out via my website, resiliencework.co.uk. I am accelerating the last few episodes of this podcast because we're coming to the end of season 7, and we've still got a little bit to get through before we complete and sign off in the season. And I have a very exciting collaboration coming next, which I'm keen to get to as well. So you may hear a little bit more from me over the next few weeks as I push out a couple more episodes, and you'll see why. But in the meantime, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend, and I look forward to speaking to you very soon. Take care. Bye.